Hi and good morning to respected panel members, distinguished guests, and fellow participants. My name is Tshin Lip Vui, and I'm honored to present my research on factors influencing intention to hire person with disability in Sabah in this conference. Employment is essential for social participation, economic independence, and well-being of persons with disabilities. In Malaysia, initiatives like the Person with Disability Act 2008 and the 1% of public sector quota promote inclusive employment. Despite this effort, persons with disability employment rates remain low, especially in Sabah and Labuan. Regional challenges include the geographical barriers, limited infrastructure, and socio-economic constraints. Employers' willingness to hire persons with disability is a key issue affecting the employment outcomes. Hiring decisions are influenced by attitudes, perceptions of disability, workplace readiness, and policy awareness. Negative stereotypes, misconceptions about the capabilities, and the perceived high accommodation cost perceived. The types of the disability also impact on the hiring, with preference often given to physical over sensory or intellectual disabilities. Organizational, culture, and workplace accessibility are also the critical factors. So many of the companies lack inclusive policies, facilities, and training, and limited awareness of legal responsibility and government support reduce employer engagement. And this study examines factors influencing the employer intention to improve the person with disability employment opportunities. And for the problem statement, the first problem statement, which is a negative employee attitudes and perception. Persistent stereotypes, person with disability perceived as less productive, less reliable, and costly to employ. And also the bias in hiring decision, including the preference for certain types of disabilities. And second, lack of awareness and organizational readiness. Poor understanding of disability legislation, for example, Person with Disability Act 2008, and the low awareness of government incentive and support program for the employers. For the third, which is the workplace accessibility and support gaps, inadequate physical, technological, and communication accessibility, and also the misconceptions about the high cost of the workplace accommodation. For the research objective, so there are three research objectives for this research, which is the first, which is explore the employer's perception and attitudes towards hiring person with disability. And number two, which is examine the organizational culture and workplace practices that influence the person with disability recruitment and inclusion. And number three, which is investigate the employer's awareness of disability legislation and its impact on the hiring decisions. And for the literature review, employment is vital for social inclusion, economic independence, and well-being of persons with disabilities. Yet, participation in Malaysia remains low, especially in Sabah due to the structural challenges. Employers hiring the intention are influenced by the multiple factors, including attitudes, organizational culture, legal awareness, accessibility, and support system. And the attitude and the perception, negative stereotypes and misconception about the productivity and reliability persist. Concern over accommodation costs and workplace disruption reduce the hiring willingness. Organizational culture and practices. Some inclusive culture and leadership encourage hiring, and the lack of the policies, training, and accessible practices discourages recruitment. For the legal awareness, limited understanding of the Person with Disability Act 2008 and weak awareness reduce the compliance and inclusive hiring behavior. For the previous contact, prior interaction with the person with disability improve perception and hiring intention, and they support the contact hypothesis in reducing the bias. For the methodology, research approach, qualitative study to explore employers' intention to hire person with disability in Sabah and Labuan, and a focus on in-depth understanding of perception and the practices. Data collection, semi-structured interviews for flexibility and deeper insight, explore the attitudes, workplace practices, legal awareness, and hiring barriers or enablers. 32 informants employers human resource manager, decision maker, data collected until the saturation is achieved. Data analysis. Data clustering includes the categorized based on research objective. Thematic analysis identifying key factors, attitudes, organizational culture, accessibility, legal awareness, economic consideration, and also the support system. Validity and the reliability. Triangulation used to enhance the credibility. Cross-check interview data with company documents, policies, and also the literature. Outcome provides a comprehensive insight into employers' perspective, support the policy improvement, inclusive practices, and future research on person with disability employment. And for the research finding one, which is answer the objective one, explore the employer's perception and attitudes towards hiring person with disability. The first perception, which is perceived the lower productivity. Employers believe the person with disabilities are slower and less efficient. Communication challenges require repetition and extra effort. And they are also concerned about the mobility, which is a wheelchair use affecting the workflow. For the perception number two, which is stereotypes based on the types of disability. Preference for certain disability, for example, physical or hearing impairment, sensory or intellectual disability seen as harder to manage, hiring decision influenced by the perceived ease of communication and adaptation, confidence and acceptance. The employers recognize the person with disabilities can perform similarly to others, and a better understanding of diverse communication method. For the third perception, which is the positive attitudes from the prior contact. Previous experience with person with disability improve confidence and acceptance. Employers recognize person with disability can perform similarly to others. And a better understanding of the diverse communication method. And for the fourth perception, which is dependence and supervision concerns. Person with disability perceived as needing constant guidance, viewed as increasing the managerial workload, and employers cite manpower constraint, limiting ability to supervise. And for the fifth perception, which is some employers support inclusion to meet government policies 1% of quota, recognize benefit for organizational image and the corporate social responsibility. View person with disability employment as promoting awareness and positive workplace values. For the research finding two, which is to answer the objective two, examine the organizational culture and workplace practice that influence person with disability recruitment inclusion. The first practice, which is the inclusive policies encourage hiring. Formal diversity and inclusion policies increase the willingness to hire a person with disability. Initial challenges can be overcome with experience and adaptation. Number two, which is supportive leadership and management. Management commitment to equity faster, inclusive workplace culture. Training and awareness programs improve the staff acceptance and readiness. And the third, which is infrastructure and work adjustment. Accessible facilities and adaptive technology support the person with disability employment, flexible work arrangement, enhanced inclusion, and also the existing facility even for customer can benefit for the person with disability employees. For the third research finding, which is to answer the objective three, which is investigate the employers' awareness of disability legislation, its impact on the hiring decision. The first awareness, which is limited knowledge of legal obligation. Many employees lack awareness of the Person with Disability Act 2008. And also the low understanding reduce the compliance and hiring intention. For the second awareness, which is awareness of increase the confidence. The knowledge of legislation and government incentives encourage hiring, improve employer confidence in recruiting person with disabilities. For the third awareness, which is legislation alone is insufficient. Hiring decision also depends on the attitude, cultures, and the workplace of the readiness. Legal awareness support but does not guarantee the requirement. And for the future research, examine the person with disability employment in informal sectors and self-employment in Sabah and Labuan, and investigate long-term impact of inclusive policies and training on organizational culture. Explore employer perception across diverse industrial and disability types, and also the assess effectiveness of government incentives and support programs on hiring person with disability. For the research limitation, scope limitation focused only on formal employment in Sabah and Labuan, exclude the informal work and self-employment, limiting the generalizability. More sample size of 33 employers, human resource manager, and decision maker may not reflect all organizational perspective. Data collection method relies on the self-reported interview, which may introduce social desirability bias. Methodological limitation. Qualitative approach provides in-depth insight but not quantity quantify the prevalence of attitudes or the practice. Generalizability findings may not be applicable beyond the study context. Broader mixed method research is needed for the comprehensive understanding. And for the conclusion, this study demonstrates that employers' attitude, organizational culture, awareness of disability legislation, workplace accessibility, and available support mechanism strongly influence the hiring of persons with disability in Sabah and Labuan. Companies with inclusive policies, supportive leadership, and prior experience with persons with disability show higher recruitment willingness. The finding emphasized the importance of targeted intervention, training, and policy enforcement to foster inclusive workplace and improve the employment opportunities for persons with disability in the region. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you for your attention. See you.